All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Some of you have seen for the second time today. If you're a guest here, welcome. Really appreciate you guys coming out tonight. I'm Dr. Brian, if you have not met me yet. And so really looking forward to this class. So real quick here, I just want to see where everybody's at. Raise your hand if either you personally or if you have like a friend or a family member that is dealing with anxiety issues. Raise your hand. Okay, keep your hands up. How about depression? MS, keep your hands up. Parkinson's. Yeah, so I mean, just look around the room and majority hands are up. And so that's the thing is that right now in the US, about 80% of our population is dealing with some sort of brain or neurological type of problem. Okay, and so this is a huge topic. Obviously, our brain is the most important organ in our body, literally runs everything. And we're really struggling with this area. So that's why it's necessary for us to do classes like this so we can get this information out there and help you guys be proactive when it comes to keeping your brain healthy, because a lot of these issues, you don't even know that you're developing them for years and years. And then by that point, it's pretty much, oftentimes too late. So what we're going to be talking about here today is we're going to be going through kind of how we're doing overall as a country with these sorts of problems. We're going to be talking about what are the key causes for these issues, and then kind of walking through some action steps that you can take and start to implement in your life to really kind of strengthen and keep a healthy brain. Does that sound good to you guys? So a lot of you have been coming to our classes before. I mean, you kind of hear me mention this all the time, but information and knowledge is powerful, but only really makes a difference for you if you do what with it? You got to use it. You got to apply that. So, I mean, there's no shortage of information with the internet and podcasts. I mean, the information's all out there. A lot of this information, I'm not just making up or anything. I had to do my own research on that, but it only really makes a difference for you if you guys really like kind of take this to heart and start to implement this in your life. And so that's really my hope today, is we really care about you guys. That's why we do these classes, because health it's more than just coming in and getting adjusted. That's kind of the part of the foundation to keep your nervous system healthy. We'll talk about that obviously today, but it's the other things that are also impacting your brain and your nervous system and your gut and all these things. Kind of your whole body works together. You can't just focus on one area and expect to be healthy if all the other areas, if you're just going down the street eating McDonald's after this class tonight. So it all kind of works together. But so jumping in here today, I just want to kind of set the standard and just help you just realize how amazing your body and your brain really is. Okay, so here's just some kind of fun facts about your brain. So you have about 86 billion neurons in your brain. Each neuron of those 86 billion has 40,000 synapses, 40,000 different connections with other neurons. So just a piece of your brain tissue that's about the size of a grain of sand has roughly about 100,000 neurons, and then a billion synapses coming off of that. That is just mind-blowing, the numbers. 100,000 chemical reactions take place in your brain every second of the day. Messages travel through your brain down your spinal cord about 268 miles per hour. Your brain, even though it's a little over the size of your fist, consumes about 15 to 20% of your cardiac output. So most of the blood flow, or a good portion of it, is actually going to your brain and the oxygen there. And then 20% of the body's energy is going towards running your brain, because it's always going. It never stops. And so your brain can store 2.5 petabytes, didn't even know that was a thing, of information. So that's roughly about 20,000 iPhones. So the point is just really having a humble appreciation for your body and your brain. You're wonderfully made, and our bodies have everything that we need. As long as we can take care of them, remove the interference, and give it the right resources to heal, that's literally what our body is designed to do. Okay. Now, here our brain is, it's running everything that's going on in our body. How well would you guys think we're doing at taking care of that? Well, we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, how 80% of our population has at least one brain sort of disorder. But here's the stats. So 1 in 31 kids diagnosed with autism. So they're expecting that to be about 1 in 2 by the year 2032. So that's not too far in the distance. In fact, some populations, it's already at that in certain kind of age groups and things like that. So, which is really scary. 1 in 10 kids diagnosed with ADD, ADHD. 1 in 5 adults or one out of two adolescents have some sort of mental health issue. We're second to last, healthy longevity. Alzheimer's is sixth leading cause of death. Alzheimer's affects 1 in 9 over the age of 65. Anybody in here have any family members that have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia? So yeah, so a few of you. It's definitely not fun. I know in my family, my brother-in-law, his mom, she just passed away last year, was dealing with it for quite a while. And it was really sad just because, like my sister and brother-in-law, like she didn't even remember who anybody was. And so they didn't even like spend a whole lot of time at that point, like going to visit her and things like that. It just really wasn't, not a place that nobody ever wants to end up. And then 1 in 10 Americans end up reporting symptoms of depression. So you see the stats here. Well, what is this really costing us? Okay, so I mean, you obviously have the direct costs with doctor's visits, medications, hospital stays. For like I said, my brother-in-law's mom, she was in a Alzheimer's dementia care facility, not cheap. So it was about 12,000 or 12,000 a month just for that. So there's those costs, and then there's also the indirect costs of how these issues are impacting everybody in your community. So you have if you think about the families that have kids with autism, it is very challenging. The divorce rates are really, really high for those families just because of the additional stress with that. You have kids that have a lot of these issues that going through school, other kids pick on them. They get bullied a lot. You have other indirect costs with time at those appointments. People that have some of these issues that decide that they're just going to take their own life, and they never really are able to fulfill and serve their purpose that God has for them on this planet. And so all these things really, really add up. And so it's really unfortunate. And so that's kind of why we're here, is because we want to really help you guys and empower you guys that you can make a change. Your body is designed to heal. And a lot of times people are told that a lot of these issues they're just genetic, okay? Well, our genes have only changed about 0.02% in the last 20,000 years. And you look at the rates that these things are increasing each and every year, there is no way that it has anything to do with our genes. But what has changed a lot, even just the last 50 years, you see the increase in a lot of these different problems. What has changed a lot is our lifestyle, our stress, toxins that we're exposed to, all these sorts of things that we're going to be talking about here tonight. And so if we can help you guys really know what those key risk factors and things are, and start to remove those, and then also add in a few other things as far as taking care of lifestyle, then that's going to make a big difference for you. So I want you guys to look at this picture here on the left. And what's the first thing you see? Just shout it out. Duck, rabbit, duck, rabbit. Okay. So we're hearing two different things, and that's good that we actually, certain people picked up that there are two different animals in there. So you have the duck, obviously, and the rabbit's facing that way, if you didn't see that. So I bring this up because your perspective is important, okay? Your perspective or thoughts affects your beliefs, which is going to affect your actions and behaviors, which is at the end of the day is going to impact the outcomes that you get, okay? So in this example, doesn't really make that big of a difference. I was just kind of illustrating a point that, depending on what you're looking at, what you're focusing on, you can see different things, okay? And so, but when it comes to your health, it can make a huge impact, okay? So let's just use a couple examples here. We just, got through COVID a few years ago. Everybody remembers that. And so depending on who's in your circle of friends or what news station you watch or the things that are, the information that's coming in, that can affect your thoughts and beliefs, which is going to affect the actions and, kind of your behaviors that were happening over that time. And obviously your results and outcomes at that. Or for example, we have a lot of people that come in that have certain health issues and, their doctor says, oh, it's just because you're getting old, or, oh, it's the genetic. And so basically in their mind, they're thinking, okay, it's genetic. So there's nothing that I can do to make a difference with this. And so that's their belief, is that doesn't matter how I eat or, how I take care of my body, it's a genetic. So I basically have no responsibility for this problem. And therefore they don't make any of the changes that they need to make. and then they end up staying the same or potentially getting getting more sick, or the problem just getting worse over time. Okay, you see how this works. And so that's the thing, is that one of our big purposes here is really to help empower you guys and change your perspective on how you're looking at how you're approaching your health, and getting you to understand that your body's designed to heal and it has everything that it needs, and then making those different changes that you need to make to improve on that. So we're going to have a little fun here. Okay, so let's just say we have two fish, and let's just say they're twins. Okay, exact same genes. Okay, and starting out, both their little fish bowls there are perfectly clear water, right? Now, we take this fish here and we start adding in some Coca-Cola. We start, sprinkling in some pesticides in there and some herbicides. We, give it some antidepressants or anxiety medications, and we start adding some bleach and some toxic cleaners and some propylene glycol, all these sorts of things that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And this is what the water is going to eventually end up looking like, right? So this one over here, let's say we're changing the water regularly. The fish is eating good, healthy fish food, all that kind of stuff. Which of the fish do you think is going to get sick? The first one, right here, right? So now the fish gets sick, and it's going to go into the little fishy doctor, and the fishy doctor is going to run a bunch of expensive tests and come up with a fancy name for the symptoms and problem that it's having. Okay. Now, the fishy doctor, and some of you can relate to this because you've been through this and experienced this. You go into your doctor and you have all these things going on, and when or if they ask you about how you're sleeping, what's your lifestyle look like, what kind of foods you're eating, what are your toxins and things you're exposed to, like, are they asking you guys those things? No. So this little fish here is sick, and 9 times out of 10, what do you think they're going to give I'm using this as an example, but with humans, 9 times out of 10, what are you going to walk out of there with? A medication. So which is another toxin. So now we're adding more toxins into an already toxic environment there. Is that fish going to get better? No. It might help to kind of treat their symptoms a little bit, so their symptoms are a little bit less, but it's still in the toxic environment that caused them to get sick to begin with, right? You guys following this? Okay. And so if we want to get that fish healthy, what do we have to do? We got to clean up the environment. We got to clean the tank. We got to give it, the right nutrients and healthy food and healthy water and all these sorts of things that our body needs to thrive. And the problem is that this is the issue with our healthcare system, is we spend so much time focusing on the disease and the sickness and the symptoms that we don't look at the whole person. Okay, and we really miss getting to the root of the issue because we're so focused on the one little thing, right? You guys understand that? And also is we're not asking the right questions. Well, if this fish got sick, but this one didn't, why didn't this one get sick? What are they doing that we can learn from and start to do and implement in our own life? And hopefully that won't be we can be like them, right? So those are the questions that we should really be asking, and we're not. So the standard approach, like with the little fish going in for some of these brain issues, are taking a pill, okay, which is just a quick fix. And so anxiety medications. Now, I was doing some research for this talk, and I was blown away by what I found. So just in the last 10 years, the prescriptions for anxiety medications, especially for the age group of like age 10 to 25, has gone up about 67%. And it's about the same for depression. They kind of prescribe these interchangeably for the most part. Okay, but if you look at what these things do to your brain, yes, they can help to maybe alleviate some of the symptoms. Well, how is that long-term affecting your brain? So it actually shrinks areas of the brain, reduces processing speeds, reduces learning capabilities. Same thing with depression medications. It numbs your emotions. We all should probably know that. Affects your memory. And then dementia medications causes swelling, sleep issues, dizziness, hallucinations, affects your gut. Also vomiting. You can be very agitated if they don't get the dosage right. So all these things. So are these things helping or are they hurting long term? What do you guys think? Yeah, they're hurting. They're not getting to the root of the problem. And so these are the key things that we should really be focusing on here. Actually, can you grab me one of the note sheets? Because I'm probably skipping over things. Did I miss anything? Okay, thank you. This is okay, so number 2 is the brain is the most important organ in the body. And you guys, this would have been on the screen. It was 20% of, or actually 80% of Americans suffer from some sort of brain or neurological disorder. And it's better to find and fix the cause rather than treat the symptoms or disease. And so now we're on number 4, the top 8 brain destroyers. Okay, so getting into this, today we're just going to be giving you kind of like a 1,000-foot view of these sorts of things. I could probably sit here and do an hour, 2-hour talk on each of these individually. So we don't have time for that. We're, try to keep these about an hour. And so we are just kind of like helping you guys to get familiar and a little bit of awareness of these topics. And then on your sheet there, I put like some other like good books and websites and some apps and stuff like that that you can use when you're out shopping or, to kind of help making some of these changes. So number 1 is, so we're really just going to be focusing on the top 4 here today. And then, the other ones you'll have to kind of do a little bit more research on. We've done some other classes on those. So I think some of them are on our YouTube or on our website. If you want to watch those, you can do that. But anyway, so toxins is number 1. That's a huge factor right now. Just kind of overall following the standard American diet, which is really affecting our brain, causing major inflammation. Our sleeping habits in the U.S., subluxations or poor posture. Stress is another key one. Our stress is through the roof now with work and relationship issues and everything that really affects your brain and your hormone balance. Just not moving our bodies as much, EMFs, and also AI. So anybody see the new study from MIT that came out about people that use like Chat GPT and stuff like that? Okay, yeah, the reduction in brain usage was significant. It was like 30% reduction from using Chat GPT. So it's going to be a big issue over time with people just not being able to like use their brain anymore because they have Chat GPT. They have robots to think for us. And then also obviously the traumas with the sports and stuff like that. So, all right, so jumping in here. Number 1, toxins. So we are living in just a toxic environment from everything, from the water that we drink, air that we breathe, building materials in your house, toys that your kids play with, clothes, furniture, mattresses. I mean, it's like they're everywhere. So we're not going to be able to avoid all toxins, but the point is being aware of them and be able to intentionally lower your exposure as much as you can, and also help your body, because our bodies fortunately are equipped to detox from a lot of these things. That's why we have a liver. That's why we have some of these detoxification pathways. So supporting your body's ability to do that. So these are just some of the things that you'll find in these environmental areas. So lead, mercury, PCBs, arsenic, fluoride, DDT, pesticides, medications. In like our municipal water supplies, they don't filter. They can't filter out the medications. They might just filter out some of the the heavy metals and things like that. But there's certain things that they can't filter out. They're not sophisticated enough to get that stuff out. So if you don't have a filter at your house, then chances are you're probably drinking somebody else's antidepressants, anxiety medications, heart medications, all those sorts of things. PFAS, so flame retardants, forever chemicals. We heard about this in Airway Heights just a few years ago. It's on. Yeah, I mean, it's still ongoing for sure. But I mean, the people they didn't know about that. They didn't know what was in their water. If you're not getting it tested or have like a filter, then you are the filter, and it's going into you and can really be affecting your health long term. All right, so number 2 is food. Okay, and this is directly in our food supply, but also a lot of the chemicals used in like packaging, preserving, or processing it. So this is pretty crazy right here. So take a guess at how many chemicals in the US we use for these sorts of things. Just take a guess.
1,500.
Higher.
2,000.
It's over 10,000. Yeah. So how many do you think are allowed in Europe? Different chemicals in their food supply. It's more than that. Yeah, it's about 411. Yeah, so 411 versus 10,000. So a lot of these companies, you can look at the nutrition labels, and some of the things that they put in our kids' cereals and some of the products over here, they don't allow that over there. They don't allow using Roundup or glyphosate on the crops and GMOs and these sorts of things. There's a lot more restrictions. And as a result of that, their health is doing a lot better than us over here in the US, which were pretty much dead last when compared to other developed countries. So, but these are some of the things: pesticides, arsenic. These pests, they all damage your nerve system. Lead, methyl mercury. So this number right here, I forgot to mention earlier, 824 million. That is the number of IQ points they estimate that people in the US lost just when they were using lead in gasoline, just in that time frame. Okay, that's not even including anything else. So on average, that's about 3 to 6 points per every single person here in the US. Might not seem like a lot, but there's, for some people that kind of are on the line with, having like a disability or something like that, that's enough to kind of put them into that actual category. Artificial sweeteners, dyes, preservatives, we're going to, kind of get in a little bit more detail with this. The crazy thing is, and how companies are allowed to do this and add all these chemicals, there's a loophole that they use. So from the year 2000, roughly about 98.7 chemicals have been approved and put into our food supply. So meaning they don't go through any regulatory process. And the companies, they go through this, there's a loophole they are generally recognized as safe. And so there's no FDA oversight, no testing. In fact, a lot of these things, the FDA doesn't test at all. They rely on the companies to provide them information and studies on them, if at all. And so who do you think they're going to be a little bit biased if the companies are providing the studies? And when it gets to drug companies, I was sharing this with the gals the other day, is that they do a lot of their studies overseas now. And so there's less restrictions, they can do them cheaper, and they can pick and choose which studies they want to give to the FDA. And so they cherry pick the ones that are more favorable to whatever product that they're wanting to kind of put onto the market. And that's what the FDA has to go off. They're not doing their own studies on any of this stuff. And so that's kind of what we're working with there. So anyway, so personal care products. So soaps, shampoos, deodorants, a lot of these things have also heavy metals, especially in the makeups with women. Fluoride, formaldehyde, they use to embalm dead people. That's in there. Aluminum, neurotoxin, hormone disrupting chemicals. So all these things in there. And so the average female uses about 12 personal care products per day, which roughly is about 170 different chemicals on a daily basis. Men, it's about 6, and roughly about 80, 90% or 90 chemicals every single day. So they get away with these because they say that, yeah, they're in there, but yeah, it's just such a low amount, it doesn't really make that big of a difference, right? But they don't take into account that people are using multiple different products with the same ingredients in there, and they're using them multiple times a day, every single day. So the small amount adds up to a larger amount over time, and they're not taking that into account when they're presenting these things or getting them approved. Next thing is vaccines and medications. So we kind of touched on the studies that they do. So which country in the world do you think takes the most medications on the planet? Which country do you think gets the most vaccines? We do. And yet, like I said, we're the sickest. Okay. And so the difference is with medications, they're more strict on the studies that they do. They have to do like a randomized controlled trial with an actual placebo. and provide that information to approve those medications. With vaccines, they actually don't have to do that. Did you guys know this? In fact, there has never been a single study that they've looked at that has compared a vaccine to an actual like true placebo. They've never done anything. They've never actually like investigated and done safety tests on the actual like vaccine schedule that we have right now. And this is so back in the 80s is roughly about 12 shots by the age of 18. Okay, so fast forward to today, it's actually a little bit more than that now, but in 2023, 69 doses of about 16 or 17 different vaccines. Okay, does anybody know what happened in 1986? So that was when the drug companies went to Congress and be like, hey, we're getting our pantsuit off by everybody that has reactions coming from these vaccines. We're not going to make them anymore unless you give us blanket liability. And that's what they did. And so now if something happens from getting a vaccine, you can't sue the drug company. In fact, you actually have to sue the government. They have a whole separate court system that you go into, and you have to prove that your injuries are due to the vaccine. And that's very difficult to do because a lot of times it's not like a night and day thing that happens like in just one visit. It can happen gradually over time. And there's other factors that can be involved as well. And so that's what people are going up with that are dealing with this. But even then, they've paid out the vaccines courts paid out billions of dollars in injuries, and most of those cases unfortunately are thrown out because it's the people having to spend out thousands and thousands of dollars in court and lawyer fees going up against the government, which has endless. What's that? They have exactly. They have all of our money. Yeah, exactly. So there's actually a tax, and that's an interesting point. There's a tax on every single vaccine that goes into this court. So you're paying for other people's that do get injuries. It goes in there. It's basically just a big slush pot that pays out people that do, can have adverse events or things that come up. So there's a study that just came out. And so the government has been not wanting to do, there's an easy way to find out, okay, are these vaccines that we're taking, are they beneficial for us? Are they, because really all we want is for our kids to be healthy and prevent these illnesses and things like that. Well, the easy way to do that is to do an actual study where they compare kids that haven't had them to kids that have. And the government has refused to do that. There's been kind of some smaller ones and things like that. In fact, like I said, they don't even do ones that compare like a true placebo. But they finally did. And so does anybody who know who Del Bigtree is? So he is the founder. He used to be the producer for the show The Doctors. And this was a number of years ago, but there was a whistleblower that came out from the CDC. William Thompson's his name, that basically came to him or was mentioning that the CDC is covering up studies and data that they're doing that are linking some of the vaccines with some of these, different, brain neurological illnesses, and they're covering them up. And so, so it was a big story anyway. So he went on to make the movie Vaxxed, where they're going around interviewing people and kind of talking about that whole situation. But he also had just recently came out with this new documentary because he ended up having one of the doctors, the head physicians at the Henry Ford, I think it's the Henry Ford Health Institute or something like that, in Cleveland, do an actual study. And they had comparing vaccinated kids to non-vaccinated kids. And they had, substantial amount of kids, so about 18,468 kids. And I'm going to play the video here and see if this works.
The health of American children is in crisis.
When we're talking about an autoimmune disease crisis, shouldn't we look closest at the one product designed to alter our immune system for life? There'd be one easy study to rule it out. Compare vaccinated children to unvaccinated children. As fate would have it, Dell met Marcus Servo. He agreed to do the study. This can be one of the most valuable studies. 4.47 times the amount of speech disorders,
Learning issues, developmental delays.
Over 4 times more likely to have an asthma diagnosis.
5.5 times risk. Amongst the unvaccinated group, they were 0.
If this is true, we are systematically making kids sick, very sick.
Only one problem. They're not going to publish it. They left us with no choice. I'm going to bring hidden cameras so that no matter what happens at this dinner, I can prove it happened. What do you think about the study you guys have done? I think it's a good study. Is there a way they can do the study better? Not that I put it out just how it is. It's the right thing to do, but I just don't want to. Somebody's going to come in and they're going to say the study is flawed.
The unpublished Henry Ford analysis is fundamentally flawed because there's a political agenda.
I'm not going to do it. Publishing something like that, might as well retire. I'd be finished. Sick. It's really sick.
I mean, honestly, like, really emotional.
This is an inconvenient study for the entire vaccine agenda.
So you can go onto that their website and watch the documentary. It's free. So I highly encourage you to do that. Expose yourself and kind of learn more about that. But this is just in the nutshell what the results were. So 3 times more allergies. They had 4 times more asthma, 5.5 times more neurodevelopmental disorders, 6 times more autoimmune issues. And in the non-vaccinated group, they had 0 ADHD, 0 learning disabilities, 0 tics. And so by the age of 10, the 57% of the vaccinated kids had some sort of chronic illness, and it was only 17% in the non-vaccinated. So right now, just across the board, our kids have about 54% of them have at least one chronic illness. And I'm not saying that vaccines are the only culprit. There are a lot of, it's kind of a perfect storm of some of the other things that we're talking about, but it's a big factor and we need to look into it. And the sad thing is, because the drug companies have blanket liability, you can't do anything. You can't sue them. If something does happen, then you're up a creek, basically. And so that needs to change, and they're covering it up. This study happened, I think it was about over 10 years ago. And the only way that they were able to get the actual like data on the study, which by the way is on the website too, you can look at that for yourself if you want, was one of the senators, Ron Johnson. I don't remember how they did it, but they had to like go ahead and get a subpoena or get a whatever to like get that information, or else they were just going to bury it and not release that study. So like you said, and it's unfortunate because so many different families are struggling with these issues with their kids.
American children is in crisis.
All right, hold on 1 second here. All right, so moving on to food. Okay, so sugar is a huge one. So we're actually coming up on Halloween now, which is probably perfect timing because all these things are tied in with that. But anyway, so right now, average American consumes about 1/2 pound of sugar per day. Okay, and so sugar, it actually triggers and stimulates the exact same part of your brain as cocaine or heroin. So you can see that on this scan right here. And so that's why it's very difficult. It's a drug. It's literally addictive for people. It's hard for people to kind of get off of that if you're used to eating quite a bit of sugar. But it really affects your brain. It affects the circulation in your brain. It damages the blood vessels, so you get less oxygen and less blood flow to your brain, causes inflammation, and also it they're calling Alzheimer's dementia type 3 diabetes. So because the effect that sugar has long term on your brain. But I'd say even of the sugar, there's certain things that you can do with working out, or that you can take other like adaptogen herbs and things like that that can help with your response to that and clear the sugar faster. Probably the thing that's even worse than sugar is actually this right here. So these bad fats. So who can give me some examples of some bad fats? Not necessarily saturated fats, because actually breast milk has a lot of saturated fat in it. Is that bad? So the bad fats are going to be things like a lot of the seed oils. So sunflower oil, safflower oil, canola oil. These are bad rancid oils. And so your brain is actually the fattiest organ in your body. And so what happens if we're putting in a lot of these bad toxic fats, then and it affects our brain because that's what our body has to build new neurons and brain cells out of. But actually, all your cells are surrounded by what we call a lipid bilayer. Okay, so it's a little layer of fats, and so if you're using a lot of these bad fats, then it causes what's called cellular congestion. So oxygen and nutrients can't get into the cell, and the waste and toxins actually can't get out of the cell. And so that causes all these toxins to kind of continue to build up simply because these bad fats that you're putting into your system regularly. And also like hydrogenated oils, partially hydrogenated oils like palm oil, canola, shortening, margarine, those are all not good fats you want to be avoiding as much as possible. Artificial sweeteners, things like aspartame, sucralose, which is basically chlorinated sugar, those are very toxic for the brain and affects your neurotransmitters, affects your gut health. Same thing with these dyes here. So fortunately, the government is kind of starting to ban some of these. Again, a lot of these things that we can use here in the States, they don't allow in other countries. They use more kind of natural like colorings. In fact, the dyes, they don't add really anything to like the flavor of the foods. It's just to kind of make it look nicer. And that's how they a lot of them are actually from industrial or like in byproducts basically. And they come to find out they can use this for, just kind of recycling it and making food look better, making clothes look better. And it's just really kind of waste control versus actually like serves any purpose in the food itself, which is crazy. But it does greatly affect your brain and neurotransmitters in your gut. So I'm going to play this video here. Kind of talks about how our gut is directly connected with our brain, and we're going to kind of get into that here in just a second. There's my cursor.
Americans eating healthier would be a top New Year's resolution, and one expert says we should start by eliminating gluten. Dr. David Perlmutter claims eating foods high in carbohydrates causes brain inflammation and can trigger neurological disorders like anxiety, depression, and ADHD. Perlmutter revised and updated his best-selling 2013 book, Brain, The Surprising Truth About Wheat, Carbs, and Sugars, Your Brain's Silent Killers. But in a statement to CBS this morning, the Sugar Association says this: it believes that sugar is best enjoyed in moderation, and decades of research support this fact. Dr. David Perlmutter, good morning, join us to the table. I have to say I'm on the side of the sugar people. Because listen, when I was reading your book, I have to tell you this, I was reading your book. That night for dinner, I had truffle pasta because truffles are in season, and I had a raspberry filled donut for dessert. And I'm doing all the things wrong that you say not to. That's an anomaly. I don't normally eat that badly, but I was doing all the things that you say don't do. Because you're saying we shouldn't eat grain at all if we want to have a healthy brain.
Actually, let me first comment on the sugar issue. I mean,
Please.
We should definitely believe the sugar industry, like we should have believed the tobacco industry years ago when they told us that smoking cigarettes were good for our health.
Mm-hmm.
But, to have some grain, if it's gluten-free, is not going to be the end of the world. It's the total carbs that we're really interested in. It was interesting how the last segment on junk food affecting your sleep, that's directly threatening to brain function the next day and long term. And, I think it's really important to understand that the choices we make today while we're younger are going to have an effect on the brain as we get older. And once that happens, there's actually very little we can do. So prevention is the mantra of the day.
Well, you say you've heard of a cancer survivor. You've never heard of an Alzheimer's survivor. And it starts really in our 20s and 30s.
That's right.
That we should
how incredible it is that the Journal of the American Medical Association just last month published a review of the so-called Alzheimer's medications and indicated that not only do they not work, but they actually are associated with more rapid cognitive decline. So we really have to emphasize prevention, and we have that understanding now.
You're suggesting that grain causes Alzheimer's?
I'm suggesting that sugar and high carbohydrates is absolutely related to Alzheimer's, and not just that Dr. Perlmutter on your program is suggesting that, but that's what our most well-respected peer-reviewed journals are telling us, and that's the inconvenient truth that we need to really talk about.
So the Alzheimer's Association said, who doesn't have the same kind of relationship, I don't think, that the one you were suggesting with the sugar folks, says this about you. Perlmutter cites preliminary research and dietary guidelines that may have value for some health conditions, but cannot be applied with any certainty to Alzheimer's or other dementias.
Well, when you're getting a statement from an organization that is supported by makers of so-called Alzheimer's drugs, that sort of mentality is not surprising. The bottom line is we know Alzheimer's is to a great extent a preventable disease, and a disease for which we have no treatment. So my mission has been for decades to really get that information out to you and the rest of the world, that our lifestyle choices are fundamentally important in terms of determining your brain's destiny. So, the idea of waiting for a magic pill, there's nothing on the horizon. So,
But don't you agree that the Alzheimer's Association would want to do everything possible to eradicate the disease?
I think that they would, and I would agree with you. And I think that the understanding that lifestyle choices are really very, very important is something that they've not fully embraced as yet. That's my mission.
So what is the lifestyle choice that somebody needs to make immediately to avoid the
biggest issue? Sugar. And how incredible that we led this segment with talking about sugar. That is, according to the New England Journal of Medicine, something that powerfully relates to increased risk for Alzheimer's disease. I want to be real
What
clear.
type of sugar?
Simple sugars, anything that's going to raise your blood sugar, as they published way back in that I put in the first edition of Grain Brain in 2012, that there's a perfect correlation between even subtle elevations of your blood sugar well below the range of diabetes and future risk for becoming an Alzheimer's.
You talk about the connection between diabetes and Alzheimer's. I thought was interesting.
Yes, if you become a type 2 diabetic, you may have quadrupled your risk for this disease that I say has no treatment. So
You'll probably have a heart attack though before you get Alzheimer's.
well, I mean, I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but why increase your risk for either of those issues?
when
You
you
really want to do your best to reduce risk. That's what
Can
prevention
I ask you
is
to
all about.
respond to Dr. David Katz, who is at Yale University, prevention researcher, well-regarded
Yes.
scientist there. And
I agree.
he said, I also find it sad that your book is filled with a whole bunch of nonsense. It's misleading people, suggesting that there is a magic cure for something as complex as
The
Alzheimer's.
book doesn't even address the cure for Alzheimer's. That's his where he got sidetracked. I have a lot of respect for him. People, with all due respect, tend to be down on what they're not up on, and the book has everything to do with prevention. So, somebody says about treatment of Alzheimer's. That's not what Grain Brain is about.
So
right?
quickly, 3 simple steps you can make to
Great. Get the sugar out of your diet. Increase your dietary fat. Who knew? Fat is your friend.
Good
Exercise.
Eat. We'll get there, but eat things like olive oil, nuts and seeds. Fat was taken off the table, as we know, for the wrong reasons 30 years ago. Reality is your brain needs fat. Your brain is 70, not just your brain. I'm not picking on you.
Eggs, avocado.
Eggs. Remember the dreaded egg?
Yeah.
You shouldn't eat eggs
what's
because
the
they
third thing?
aerobic exercise. You don't have to have Cardi B on your team. You can do it.
Thank God. Exercise, Dr. Perlmutter. We got to go, but exercise. For many Americans, eating.
All right. So key points there is like it's not just the sugars, the things in the little packets. So it's the grains, the carbs, those kind of things. All your body converts to sugar and essentially has kind of the same metabolic effect on your body and on your brain. Sleep. So only, we have a big issue with sleep here in the U.S. 40% of Americans are sleep deprived, and a lot of people are taking medications for it as well. And so these things are not designed to be taking long term. And so, yes, certain people might need to take a medication for a short period of time, but it should never be like a long-term thing. As long as your doctor or whoever is working with you to like be able to get off those things, that's really kind of what it's about. But these things, 68% take longer than prescribed, 460% increase in all-cause mortality from sleep medications, 51% increased risk of Alzheimer's if you're taking those for 90 days. So what is the purpose of sleep? Why is that so important? Well, that's when your body, your brain kind of reboots. It's kind of like, your computer has to reboot and kind of restart every once in a while. That's when your brain does that. And so it helps to kind of like flush out the wastes and toxins and kind of forms those neural pathways. And that's your anabolic state too. So at night when you're sleeping, that's when your body does all the healing and repair. It's when growth hormone, testosterone, these kind of things go up, because like if you're in the gym working out, you don't make your gains while you're working out. In fact, you actually damage your body. And so at night, that's when your body repairs that, and that all happens while you're sleeping. So if you're not getting enough sleep, then you're at a deficit all day long, and it adds up really over time with your brain. In fact, they did a study with rats, and they, I think it was for like 3 weeks. Once they kind of caught them like nodding off, they would like get them with this little zapper or whatever. And so they basically, the rats couldn't sleep for like 3 weeks. And what ended up happening is their immune system tanked, and they got some sort of infection. They all died. And so what do we see with going this time of year? If you're not getting good amount of sleep, what happens to your immune system? It goes down. It's not because it's cold and flu season. It's because your body is not resilient, and you're not sleeping enough, not getting your vitamin D anymore from being out in the sun. Like all these kind of things happen right around this time. And so that's something to kind of consider. So subluxations, poor posture. So we talked about subluxations, misalignments in the spine. Those can come from 3 things: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. Now, how in the world does that affect your brain? Well, along your spine, you have all these little postural muscles. Okay, and so if your spine gets out of alignment, then it sends abnormal signals to your brain, and then your brain doesn't know how to respond because it can't properly sense the environment, what's going on in your body, and it can't also sense what's happening outside your body. That's what your nerve system does, and it responds to what it needs to do. And so it's this kind of this cycle. So now your brain doesn't know how to respond because it's getting the wrong messages. And so it may send the wrong information down your spine, out the nerves to the organs, or to your muscles, and just kind of like changes everything. And so that can cause like poor body awareness. As you get older, if you're out of alignment and your body doesn't know where your limbs and everything are, then you can be at increased risk for falls. Poor body control, less strength, poor just organ function again, because those organs are signaling to the brain. If they can't get the proper messages there, it's all distorted. Then it can really affect everything. Poor posture affects your blood flow to your brain. If you lose that curve in your neck, one of the key arteries to your brain, your vertebral artery, runs in those bones. And so that actually like kinks that artery, and so you don't get enough oxygen and blood flow up there. So all these things happen from just not having very good posture. And so people think that, poor posture, just, you just look a little funny. But no, it actually has a lot more significant impact on your body and how it's functioning overall. So let's get into what you can do about it now. So 8 steps to better brain health. Number 1, it starts with eliminating or minimizing the toxins. Like I said, it's very difficult to avoid all the toxins, but if you can kind of lower your toxic load, then it does make a big difference. So how do you do that? Number 1, it starts with buying organic, making your own cleaners, making your own, if you can, personal care products, or at least getting natural ones that don't have a lot of the bad stuff in there. Looking for ingredients that you can read. It doesn't look like it's actually like made in some sort of laboratory or things like that. Getting an air filter. So in here, you guys have probably seen we have an air doctor here. We have one over there. We got 2 filters. So our inside environments are actually 5 to 100 times more toxic than our environments outside. Our homes these days are a lot more airtight and efficient, which is great for your energy bill, but also you get the off-gassing from your carpets and your paints and all these things that you're kind of breathing in on a regular basis. So having a good air filter is great for allergens, but also great for getting a lot of those toxins out of the air. You're not breathing those in all day long. Drinking plenty of good, clean water. So water helps your body regulate its temperature, helps flush toxins out. Most of your body is made up of water, and sadly, most people don't get enough water. How much water should you be having on a daily basis? Who knows? What's that? Half your body weight in ounces. Exactly. Yeah. So that's what you want to be shooting for. If it's a little bit warmer outside, probably bump that up a little bit if you're more active. But like we talked about earlier, making sure that you're getting good, clean water. Okay. So as I mentioned, if you don't have a filter at home, then your body is the filter. Okay. And there's all kinds of bad stuff that's in just drinking regular tap water. So you want to make sure that you get a filter. And I would recommend doing that over getting just buying like bottled water or something like that, because most of the time you're going to be getting that in what kind of bottles? Plastic bottles. And so now you're drinking microplastics and BPA and other chemicals because they're sitting on a truck in the middle of the sun, in the summertime. So get a filter. I'd recommend, if you can, get it like a whole house filter. If you don't have the funds to do that, that's fine. You can get just like a point of entry filter that you can put like on your sink or where you fill up your water bottles. You can get like a shower one that just attaches to the shower, which you want one of those too, because your skin's your largest organ, and so just about a 10-minute shower is about drinking like 8 glasses of water. So, and you're breathing in, the chlorine and other things that are in the water. You're breathing those kind of chemicals in when you're in a warm shower. So, some examples of brands to look into. I personally have a Vitasalis whole house filter. You can look into like Aquasana is another kind of pretty big name. Colligan even does them now. Pelican is another one. So there's a lot of options out there. It just kind of depends on what your setup is for your house and how much you want to spend, essentially. So, but something is going to be better than nothing. Optimize your sleep. So most people need somewhere between 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Okay. And so the key thing with your sleep is trying to keep a consistent routine. So try to, go to bed around the same time each night, get up around the same time. One thing that we find with a lot of our patients here is they have a hard time kind of like turning their brain off or winding down. So if you can have like a buffer period between spending time on your phone or the computer and actually going to bed, that is key. You don't want to be sitting in bed scrolling, whatever the latest does on social media, because it's going to, most of the stuff on there is emotionally charging, and that's not going to help. Plus you're getting, you can get the blue light, which actually reduces your melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. So we don't want that. So what you can do instead is like having, like a little routine that you go through. If it's just, reading for a little bit, maybe, praying, doing journaling, whatever it is that kind of helps you relax and, get into a place where it's easier for you to fall asleep, is great. Make sure it's a dark environment and nice and cold as well. So that your body sleeps better when in that kind of environment. Clean up your diet. So getting rid of a lot of the, buying organic. So getting rid of a lot of the pesticides, herbicides. I'd say if you're going to go organic with one thing, it's definitely going to be with your animal products. So because you are not what you're eating, you are what you're eating ate. Okay. So if you're buying conventional meats or dairy or things like that, they're going to tend to have a lot of the toxins and pesticides and things like that stored up in the fat cells of the animal, which therefore you're eating. And so it's going to be a much higher concentration of those things that you're getting in your body, which has the same effect on you. So pasture raised, grass fed. Just a week or two ago, we use a Casa Cano Ranch, which is just down south here in Valley Ford. Amazing meat. So it's grass fed, grass finished. They don't do any dewormers, no antibiotics, no hormones. Basically it's just kind of as cows were designed to be raised, and the meat is phenomenal. So highly recommend checking them out. And then working on healing your gut. So your gut is directly connected with your brain through your circulatory system, but also through your vagus nerve. Who's heard of the vagus nerve before? Yes. In fact, they've actually done studies where they did I think they're called vagectomies, where in mice, where they cut parts of the vagus nerve, because you can actually have bacteria from your gut that get into your brain. And when they cut the nerves, then those bacteria weren't showing up there. And so they travel directly up the nerve, which was pretty. I just learned that actually in the book Gut Check, which is on your sheet here. So a pretty good book to check out. But anyway, so through all these things that we've been talking about the last 30 minutes, toxins, bad fats, sugar, those sorts of things, medications, they all damage the single cell lining of your digestive tract. And so now things that don't usually get in your bloodstream can get into your bloodstream. It's called leaky gut. Who's heard of that before? Okay. And so those things cause inflammation through your whole body. They can get up to your brain, affect your brain, cause inflammation there. And so a lot of times people think that, oh yeah, I'll just take some probiotics and things like that, and that'll help my gut. And it can, but there's if you're not getting rid of the things that are damaging and inflaming your gut and kind of going through the right process, then chances are it's just going to keep coming back, probably getting worse over time. Okay, so this is really the process that you want to go through when it comes to healing or repairing your gut. You got to go through the heal and seal phase, which is the first part where you're eliminating a lot of things that are damaging and inflaming your gut. And then you gotta, once your gut is doing better, then that's when you can start to detox from some of the toxins that we're just talking about. And the toxins have a place to go. And then the third phase, that's when you're kind of rebalancing and repairing your microbiome and getting that balance back. Okay. So some of you, I think, have done the gut program in here. Some of you are new and have never heard of it before. So on your wellness score sheet there, so if you're a 4 or above, then you would probably benefit from doing the gut program. Okay. And so that, again, is going to help your gut. If you're 4 or less, then you would probably be fine doing like our wellness kit or something like that. It's not quite as strict, but we see phenomenal results with this. So here's a patient on acid reflux medication since a teenager, off those. Another patient, no more migraines, lost 15 pounds, not missing work anymore. Another one lost 28 pounds, migraines gone down, less IBS, no brain fog, no IBS, restless legs gone, reflux gone. I mean, these are just some of the results that we see with people going through this. Now, I will say it does take some work, take some discipline. You know, any lifestyle change does, but if you can stick with it and follow through, then we see some really good improvements there. So if that's something that you're interested in, then we're doing a special seminar discount here. It's 25% off that program. Depending on what your score is, the gals can help you know which one you need to do because there's different variations of that a little bit. Number 5 is mindful practices. So these are things that they're easy. They don't take very much time. They're free. So things like breathing exercises. So doing box breathing. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, you rest for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, then you rest for 4 seconds. This is a technique that's used by Navy SEALs to help to kind of calm their nervous system so they can, do what they need to do in battle. But it helps to reduce cortisol. Cortisol affects your brain, especially your hippocampus, which is the part that is responsible for your emotions and feelings and things like that. Meditation, that's a great tool. I use that. Gratitude journal. Gratitude is, when you're in a state of gratefulness, you can't be in the state of like depression or anxiety. So working on those things, you can do that at night. Like I said, just kind of writing down 3 things that you're thankful for, things that are going great in your, was great in your day, whatever you need to do. I spelled journal wrong there, looks like. Regular exercise. So shoot for at least 15 to 20 minutes per day. And outside is best if you can, especially like in the sun. So just moving your body. I mean, these are all things how your brain's affected by, moving your body. So it helps improve blood flow to the brain, helps, again, kind of clear a lot of the sugar out, improves your memory, improves your energy. It's one of the best antidepressants out there. So people dealing with depression, like just move your bodies, and that makes a big difference right there. Reducing your EMF exposure, minimizing that. So how do you do that? So, I mean, we live in just kind of a world now where everything's a smart device. Your appliances, your TV, your phone, your computers. So what do you do about that? Well, number 1 is increasing the distance that you have from those devices. For me personally, with my phone, I turn off the 5G. I'm not going to go to 5G. So because of all the research, there's a book, it's on your sheet here, EMF'd by Mercola, kind of talks about that if you want more information on that. But so doing that, turning off the 5G on your phone, don't sleep next to your phone. Make sure that you're putting in airplane mode as much as you can throughout the day, especially like at night when you're sleeping. And also just there's different filters that you can get to. Like we have these little devices in here too that help to kind of help with the absorption of the EMF, so how your body responds to it. This is a Somavedic. You can get little shields on your phone. Anything that you can do. I mean, there's a lot of different things, but you want to just minimize your exposure to that stuff as much as you can. And then chiropractic care. So why we talked about that? Because as we were going over before, your posture and your alignment with your spine directly affects your brain function and how your nerve system sees and perceives the environment inside your body and outside your body. So for your brain to talk to the organs and everything properly, your spine needs to be nice and straight from the back, and you want to have those curves in it from the side, okay? And that's really important. And when you get adjusted, it doesn't just help with your pain, it actually like affects the functions in your brain. Did you guys know that? No? All right. Well, guess what? You're going to learn something new today. Sorry, we're going over a little bit of overtime.
The way your spine works actually changes the way your brain works. An amazing new study was conducted in 2015 in a hospital in Denmark. A group of people who had never had any chiropractic care before attended 2 sessions. One with real chiropractic care and one with sham chiropractic care. During both sessions, whole head brain waves were recorded. The brainwave recordings, or electroencephalography, EEG for short, showed some very clear changes in the way the brain functions after the chiropractic session, and no changes happened after the sham session. The study showed a change in brain function of almost 20% on average after the chiropractic session. This study is really important because it's the 4th time this very same finding has been published in reputable research journals. And this study's data is collected and analyzed by non-chiropractic scientists. This means there is no doubt that adjusting your spine changes the way your brain operates. Because the Danish scientists recorded the brain waves, or EEG, over the whole head from 64 individual electrodes, they could also work out exactly where the changes in function were happening after the chiropractic session. They were able to show that the changes were most likely taking place in an area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. This part of your brain is a little bit like the conductor of the brain, making all the other parts of your brain cooperate together in perfect harmony. The prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain where your executive functions take place. This means it's very important for our everyday behavior. It's the part of the brain needed for us to be able to carry out all goal-directed tasks, decision-making, memory and attention, intelligence, processing of pain and emotional responses to it, autonomic function, movement control, eye movements, and spatial awareness. Therefore, demonstrating that chiropractic care changes function of the prefrontal cortex could explain many previous research results that have been documented with chiropractic care, such as improvements in sensorimotor function relevant to falls prevention in the elderly, or better joint position sense in both the upper limb and the lower limb. Also improved muscle strength in several lower limb muscles, better pelvic floor muscle control, and better ability to carry out mental rotations of objects in space. Being able to accurately perceive where you are and where your arms and legs are is very, very important. You need to know where you are to be able to move without having accidents. And it's also very important to be able to accurately perceive the world around you. This is a vital skill we need all day, every day. To recognize some objects, you may need to mentally rotate them. For example, to recognize the letter P versus the letter B, if they are not upright, you would need to mentally rotate them in your mind to figure out which letter it was. We all mentally rotate shapes and objects that we see, but we may not often think about that we do it, or how important it is for our daily life. Chiropractors have long observed a wide variety of changes in people under their care following adjustments. Along the wide spectrum of claims from those who are under care are those who say they feel better or are able to focus better, and those who notice improvements in movement and coordination. This study takes us a little further down the path of understanding why this could be. So have you seen your chiropractor lately? You may
All right. Yeah, so this is just one of our patients here. She's an amazing patient. Her and her husband come in. They heard me on the radio. It's about 11 years ago, actually, I think now. But so she started out all kinds of brain fog, just hormones all over the place. And I really just didn't know what to do, or wasn't getting any answers from other doctors that she'd been to. So this is a picture of her. She's coming off 3 of her medications. She doesn't have any pain anymore, no more dizziness, no more like brain fog, and so they come in every other week and just kind of for maintenance and wellness, keeping their brain healthy and these sorts of things. And that's how important it is to just take care of your spine long term. I mean, that's really, chiropractic care needs to be kind of part of the foundation for your health plan, because as you can see now, it not only helps you feel better, affects how your brain's working, helps your body with your immune system, all kinds of different things. So if you're a patient here, definitely keep up with your appointments best you can. Working on your home exercises. We love you, but we want to have you come in here 2-3 times a week forever. So that's why we kind of cut that back down, but gives you a little bit more responsibility for you at home. Sharing chiropractic with other people that don't know what we're teaching you guys here, because it can really make a huge difference for them. And then we're doing our discount on the back side here. So we're doing the discount on any of the kits if you're interested in. Or if you're not ready to kind of start with one of those, any of the other supplements too, we want to reward you guys for taking time to be here. So you get 20% off anything else if you're interested in that. If you're a guest here, you haven't had your spine checked, I encourage you to do that. The gals at the front desk can set up an appointment for you. And if you're here, you're probably brought here by one of our other patients. So it's just $33 for a summer special to get checked out, do x-rays, exam, and then report of findings, going over everything with you. And so they can help you out with that also. So any questions for me? Was that helpful for you guys? It was a lot. It was a lot. So it's so much going into your brain health. So thanks for sticking it out here. And let me know if you have any other questions, and I hope you guys have a good evening. So thanks.
Thank you.